So the first thing that I want to talk about is just healing. You have to understand this. Books can have your healing. You know, time has healing. I always say time does heal things. I know that's like the cop-out answer for a lot of people, but it's true. Time does heal. Think about things that you thought you could never get over, and now you don't even think about those things because of time, right? Time does heal, but I want to be clear. You know, I'm a man of faith. I believe God has your healing. God has your healing. And sometimes you have to go through your loneliest times to understand just what being loved actually feels like from God. When I lost sports, for me, again, I know that seems silly, but when I lost sports, I had to go through that time of losing my identity, losing basically everything in my life, but I found my true self at rock bottom. I found the love that God had for me. And so there's a scripture. It says, God is closest to the brokenhearted. He rescues those that are crushed in spirit. So I'm going to encourage everybody, like all of you guys, to build that relationship with God even deeper during the storm. You know, during the storm, sometimes we go to God, but sometimes we blame God. We blame God for a relationship that ended when when we put ourselves in a relationship. It wasn't always God's doing. Sometimes it was our loneliness doing. Sometimes it was our temptation doing. Sometimes we stayed in a job that wasn't for us. God didn't have that job for us, but we were so hungry for and thirsty for opportunity that we took that job that wasn't for us, that destroyed our confidence, that destroyed, our talent. You know, we got in a place that was a dead situation. So realize, number one, God has your healing. Number two, understand, and I don't want to say one or two, just next thing is please get this. It won't just go away. There is no magic formula when you're moving on to make the pain go away. And I honestly think that you don't want it to go away. Now, you don't want it to keep affecting you where it leads you to depression and all these things in your life, but I want you to remember the pain. And we'll talk about it. I want you to remember it because I want you to know what it actually brought to you. The next thing I want to remind you on when it comes to moving on, you have to understand these things is it just won't go away. I get so many messages every single day. It's like, Trent, I just want the pain to go away. I just want it to go away. I wish we had a magic snap that could just make pain go away, that could just make all the pain we ever felt just bang, go away, or make us forget about the person that we're trying to get over, or make us forget about the time or lifestyle or job that we're trying to get over. It doesn't work like that. And just to even tell you, like start even talking about this when it comes to awareness, realize this. One of the things that people always are in my inbox is like, Trent, the pain won't go away. And second is, I'm trying to get over the person. It's going to take a look. We're going to talk about this for a second. If you're focused on trying to get over the person or situation, whatever your deal is, then guess what? You'll never get over them because you're making the goal of your healing about them. And the goal of your healing is not about them. It's about you. The goal isn't to get over them. The goal is to learn how to love yourself better. The goal is to understand yourself better. The goal is to allow the situation to help you more. But if you're focused on getting over that person, you're going to tie, okay, if it's in a situation, when I say person, like really related to your life, maybe it's not a person for you, maybe it's a situation or a time or like I said, addiction. So just take it, don't take it out of context for you. But if you're associating getting over the thing or that with, your healing, and if you're thinking about that person or you're thinking about that thing, I still think about football. There's not probably a week goes by that I don't think about, man, I wish, especially when football said, like, man, I need to be out there. And side note, I tried to go out there, sprint the other day with Tristan. I pulled my hamstring. It reminded me of my age real quick that I don't need to be out there. But it's not a week that goes by. I was like, man, and I'm a coach of youth sports and football with Tristan's team, and I'm out there, man, I miss it. I want to go out there. And if I thought that the association of me being free from it is me never thinking about it, then I would never have gotten through it or healed from that. So realize that when it comes to association, like it's not about, oh, I need to like block, like nobody has a Men in Black zap where it's like, psh, okay, I don't know what happened 3 months ago. That doesn't happen. The goal though is to love yourself more. The goal is as we move forward in anything we do in life, the goal is to have the thing that had so much power over us start to lose power over us. The thing that has so much control over us starts to lose control over us. The thing that had so much power starts to become powerless until you get to a place where that thing doesn't affect your emotions. It doesn't affect how you operate your day. You don't even think about it anymore. And when you do think about it, it's just a reminder of what you don't want, of what you don't want to go back to, of what you settle for, and the reason why you change. It reminds you of that. So that's a mistake that I see a lot of us make when it comes to trying to move on. I made that mistake too at some point in my life. Another thing, understand that it's okay to hurt. It's okay. Like you were involved with something that was a big part of your life. Now you're trying to operate it. Now you're trying to operate your life without it. It's going to take some adjustment. That could be another area. It's going to take some adjustment. You're going to hurt. You're going to feel loneliness. You're going to want to go back because, again, that was something that made you feel comfortable at a point. That was maybe something that made you even feel confident at a point. That was something that you're used to. And so when we remove the things that we're used to, or we no longer have the things that we're used to, we're going to hurt. And hurt doesn't mean that you're weak. Hurt doesn't mean that you're not moving forward. Sometimes the most painful steps are the steps that are moving towards our healing. You do understand that, right? Sometimes it is that. But as you continue to step, it becomes less painful. And I'll tell you right now, like the first steps are probably the most painful. You know, oftentimes I feel like the enemy are just like our comfort. I say the lesser version of ourselves that wants to bring us back into something that's comfortable for us. We often think we made a mistake because as we move forward, like the first few steps and as the first few months, even a year, the first few days, we start to receive a lot of like negativity, a lot of like pain, backlash. And we're like, man, I made the wrong mistake. Maybe you're judged and people are like, oh, you left the relationship. Oh, you're single now, or you're divorced now. Oh, then you must be this. You're a failure. And we start to feel all of that. Or you lost your job or your dream, like, oh, you don't have it no more, or you're nobody. And you start to hear the noise and you start, man, I made the wrong decision. Absolutely, you didn't make the wrong decision. The future you would thank you for making that decision. So as you move forward, just know you're going to go through some uncomfortable times. It's going to be different because you're no longer operating your life without a big part of your life. When it comes to moving on, also, and I know I'm giving you guys a lot of stuff, man. This should be the guideline for moving on. I promise you, if you just think about these things, moving on won't be easy, but it will become easier. Something that I reminded myself of is that there's more to myself than that. There's more to you than that. And again, we tie our identity to that very often. And so we feel like if we lose that, then we have lost ourselves. And you might go through a period where you lose yourself. But you have to remind yourself of who you are. You're more than that broken relationship. You're more than that failed dream. You're more than that lost job. You're more than that addiction. You're more than that loss. You are more than that. And I want you to remind yourself that because of that, you're going to become better. Because of that, you're going to become stronger. Because of that, you're going to become wiser. Because of that loss, you're going to create the greatest gain in your life. Sometimes it takes going down the wrong path to bring your life to the right place. Hello. Sometimes it's experiencing what you don't want to help you know what you're no longer going to settle for. Sometimes it takes losing everything you think you need to show you that it's nothing that you need. Hello. You got to remind yourself that you're more than that. And, you know, one of the things that I often hear too is, oh, Trent, like, it's a waste. I'm just going to stay in this because I've spent so many years. Don't let the history keep you in the misery. Some of y'all heard that on the Everybody Isn't Your Friend video. Don't let the history keep you in the misery. Just because you have years with a person, with a job, with a situation, that is no reason to stay in a place that is breaking you down. Again, think futuristic. Have a conversation. I know this seems weird, but have it. I have it often. Have a conversation with the 90-year-old you. What is the 90-year-old you that's in the rocking chair going to sit back and wish they would have done? What are the regrets that's going to be in the 90-year-old you's life? What are the regrets? And when we get to 90, there's no reversing time. There's no reversing time now. So don't continue to waste your life waiting on something that might never show up. That's a straight up moment right there. Don't continue to waste your life waiting on something that might never show up. And if you learn from it, if you grew from it, if it showed you what you didn't want or showed you what you do want, what you're not going to settle for, what you actually deserve, it's not a waste. That's a lesson. We often think that failure, as the world says it, oh, if we don't succeed, then it's a failure. No. If we don't succeed, it just didn't happen the way that people thought it would happen. Or maybe we thought it would happen. But there's always another way to make it happen. And sometimes the other way, the another way, is a better way. And so it's not a waste of time. So with questions you can ask yourself in these moments of moving on, okay, what did this build inside of you? What did the imperfection build inside of you that no perfection could have built in you? What did the bad relationship built inside of you help you know about yourself that you're going to bring into your new relationship once you heal, by the way? Because too many of us, we try to get into a new situation without healing from our past situation. And then we bring in old baggage from our past situation that ends up being a mess in our new situation. So what is it in that past that's going to help you become a better person in your future? That's going to help you build a better future. Because that wasn't a waste. To me, that was a win. If I got better, if I learned, if I grew from it, that is not a waste. It's not a win. And I often tell myself it's the beginning of something new. You know, COVID-19, you know, the thing is nothing's going to go back to normal. Okay, great. I don't want to go back to normal. What is normal? No, if I went through this situation and I didn't grow from this situation or change from this situation or something great didn't come out this situation, then I went through the situation for no reason. In your life, you shouldn't want things to go back to normal, especially when you know normal is something that will never go back to anyway. What are you going to get from the situation? Right? What's going to be the new normal for your life? And when you focus on that, you focus on building that instead of trying to save something that can't be saved. And as you're going through COVID-19, as a side note, like, think about that. What's going to be your new normal? Because wanting to go, like some of us, before COVID-19, we're in a terrible situation. Terrible relationship, terrible job. Maybe you got fired from your job. Maybe it was the biggest blessing that ever happened to you because you were working a job that you hated anyway. You was praying for God to release you from the job, and maybe it's not the way you weren't ready for it. And sometimes what God has for us, we're never ready for what he has for us. He doesn't sit here and call the qualified. He qualifies the call, right? He qualifies the ones that he calls. I know that firsthand in what I do. So think about that. Like, maybe it was a broken relationship before COVID-19. Maybe you're releasing it. Maybe it was a broken relationship. Maybe you're fixing it. I don't know your situation. But just create a new normal. And as you move on, what you have to do is you have to spend time. This is about awareness. You have to spend time redefining your standards, redefining your values, like redefining what you stand up for, redefining your principles. You guys are no strangers to this conversation. Go back and listen to the habits training if you haven't. But you guys are no strangers to this conversation because I'm a firm believer in it. Your principles, standards, values, morals, whatever you want to call it, that is the roadmap for your life. That is the roadmap for decisions. That is the roadmap for, is this good for my life or is this bad for my life? Should I do this or should I do that? Should I stay in this or should I leave from it? Like, what are your values saying? If your values are saying no, 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 no. If your standards are saying no, 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 no. If your principles are saying heck no, no, absolutely not. Then if you stay in a situation where you got all these no's from the things that you know that gives you life, for the things that you know that gives you peace, for the things that you know that help operate you at a high level, for the things that you know are the roadmap to your life, and you stay in things and you ignore that roadmap, guess what? You're going to be lost. You're going to find yourself in a place where you don't even know yourself because you're staying in things that aren't a direct correlation for the things that you say you want to feel. So understand those things, like your values and your, like, redefine them. Redefine and set boundaries and don't have your boundaries budge for nothing. I don't care what temptation comes in your life, because usually if something's been a part of your life for a long time, they know, or it knows, the right temptations to tempt you with, to bring you back to a situation that you know what it is, that you know how it's going to be, that you know how it's going to end. Remind yourself of those things. As we talked about a little bit earlier, and this might seem like the wrong thing to say, but I want you guys to get it. Remember the pain. this kind of falls into the category of association. Time has the power to make us forget, right? Like in anything. And people, listen, people can change. I want to say that situations can change, things can change. I'm not saying if it was bad once, it has to be bad forever. No, but again, you can't change people or you can't change something, right? That thing has to want to change for itself. And a lot of us, we spend our whole entire life trying to change. There's no perfection you can provide to a person that is committed to misunderstanding you. There's no perfection that you can provide to a person that doesn't want to be the person that you need them to be. Write that down. So when I talk about remembering the pain, you got to have some type of like trigger. It reminds me like we have at our house, we have a little dog fence, right? And it's funny. It reminds me like the elephant story about how the elephant had the rock or whatever tied around his leg or the chain, and the elephant, over years had that chain tied around his leg. And then once they removed the chain, the elephant never moved because psychology, it was like, oh, I still have this wrapped, around my leg. And a lot of us are like that in situations. Like we've been so psychologically messed up. We'll use another word, but I'm not. We're so psychologically messed up, and we all are, that we feel like we can't be freed even. So Titan, our dog, Titan's very smart. It's part of the Golden Doodle bloodline. At least ours is like that. So how am I going to illustrate this with remembering the pain? With Titan, and I'll just say like this, a lot of us psychologically, just remember that psychologically, a lot of us are messed up. And so like if we have something that we continually do over and over and over, or we have a cage that we're in and we feel like okay, even if it's a lot of us have invisible cages, right? We've been in a cage so long that was physical that even when that cage is removed, we think we can't escape because psychologically the cage is still there. And so with Titan, we have this fence. And the fence, we always have it there so it doesn't go past a certain area in our house. And as we're about to sell our house, so we have to remove it, just to remove certain things. So Titan doesn't even go past that area because in his mind, he's been trained that I don't go past this area. The fence is still there. And how does that relate to you? Well, it relates to you that you need a fence, right? Not to necessarily keep you in a situation, but prevent you from going back to a situation. So Titan also knows that there's a certain place that he doesn't go past, right? Reminders and triggers. You need these things in your life. You need, especially if you're trying to get over a situation and move on from it, you need reminders of the pain. Because like I said, somebody can sell you a dream that they change and give you everything that you need because they know exactly what you need, tempt you with temptation. The job can come back and say, oh, everything, you have to know what that pain once gave you. Some of the things that I tell people to do, and this might seem crazy, even from like a fitness standpoint, you know what I did? I actually took a picture of me, because I'm going on this fitness journey. I took a picture of me at my, when I was embarrassed of showing, and I put it on my phone where I could see it. I'm about to actually put it on my screensaver. And I challenge other people to do that because oftentimes, I think we talked about this in the image train, oftentimes we have pictures of where we want to be, but we don't have images of what we don't want to be. And so that's a reminder to hey, you don't want to feel this pain of feeling tired. You don't feel this pain of not being able to operate your highest level. So it's a reminder for me. You need that fence. You need that reminder. As you get pulled back, you're like, wait a minute. I don't need to go back to this situation because there's going to come a time and where you moved on, where you want to go back to what you moved on from. And so maybe it's changing the name of the person in your phone. Maybe the name is, maybe it's Megan, right? And Megan has brought you so much pain in your life, destruction in your life, and maybe you change her name from Megan to destructive person. And so every time you see that person calling, it's reminding you of the pain that they gave you so you don't pick up. Because we know if we pick up, then we can go all the way. We can lose all the work of healing that we had, all the things of moving on that we had, because it's like a wound. If you touch that wound, right? People think of your healing as a wound, right? You have a wound that it's hurt, it's painful, and if you don't touch it, it's going to heal over time. It might leave a scar. The scar is a reminder of what you healed from, Not what broke you, but what you healed from, what you grew from, what you became stronger because of. That scar is that reminder. But if we touch it, if we keep scratching it, it's like what your mom said. Stop scratching that, baby. Stop touching that cut. And I always scratched it. And what happened? It would bleed, open back up. And it would take another months to actually scab over and then scar over. But if you keep touching it every time, even if it's about to heal, and you scratch that wound, you touch that wound, then you have to start the process over and over and over again until it gets to a point where you just accept the situation in your life. So remember the pain. Also, identify the magnets. Like, what are the things that pull you back, right? What are the times in your life? It's the same thing with habits and triggers. What are the times in your life where you feel are most vulnerable? Like, what is it? Like, is it during like COVID-19 where you feel lonely? Like you're not, for most people, I mean, Texas is open now, but for most people it was like isolated, and it's still isolated for some of you. And you're like, man, I'm so isolated. Okay, when I go through loneliness, I want to go back to whatever it is. I want to go back to doing that. I want to go back to that situation. And so you have to identify the magnets. And as you identify the magnets, you have to develop fire escapes. We talk about this a lot in rehab time. The fire escape is the thing that saves you from the fire. The thing that when you want to go back and that magnet is strong and it's pulling you. I mean, it's pulling you. But you have that fire escape. Maybe it's this video. Maybe it's, a friend that you call. Maybe it's getting into your word. Maybe it's working out. Maybe it's a reminder of how much pain the person gave. Maybe you took a picture. Maybe it was abuse and they abused you and you take that picture and you see that. Or maybe it's the job where you're stressed out at home and you're depressed because the job has stressed you so much, right? Whatever it is, you have that reminder, that fire escape. You have that mentor that you go to, that's your coach that reminds you, that's your therapist that reminds you. So you got to have, maybe it's around your kids because you want to give your kids a more fulfilled life. And so it's the reminder. So you got to have your fire escapes written down. Like you got to identify your magnets. Don't just go off of life and say, okay, well, I'm just going to, I can handle, I'm strong enough. No. Have these things written down. Understand these things. Understand also, the more we prevent ourselves from moving forward and turning the page, and the more we stay stuck on a chapter that was meant to end years ago. Some of us were in seasons that have already had that purpose in our life. Some of us were choosing to stay in seasons that no longer serve our life. If we choose to stay in a place that's no progression, that's keeping us stagnant, guess what happens? Our dreams, our life, whatever it is, the greatest you, as I like to call it, it's never going to be fulfilled. It's never going to be fulfilled. So delete what needs to be deleted from your life. Okay? Accept that. Accept that has to be gone. Moving on becomes easier when you focus on what you're moving on to instead of what you're moving on from. Moving on becomes easier when you realize that your future has the healing that you're looking for, not your past. You got to stop giving your life, your heart, back to the thing that broke it, expecting them to fix it. Can that happen at times? Absolutely. But the reality of the situation, and only you know your situation, what's the likelihood of that? There has to come a point where you just say, I'm done. I'm not looking back. I'm not going back, because I know that what I deserve involves me moving forward. Even if you try to sell me the dream, because people will do that. Oh, you're not going to be nothing without me. And they have manipulated you so much, or the situation has manipulated you so much that you feel like you're incapable to do anything with your life without that situation. Again, your best life, the life that you deserve, is not engulfed in depression. It's not engulfed in pain. It's not engulfed in toxic things. It's not how life is supposed to live. I don't know who sold you that. I don't know if you saw that growing up. But that's not life. That's not love. Maybe you got to redefine and change the definition of what love means to you. In any area, don't just think of relationships. What does that mean for you? Because when we understand our definitions and we have the meanings of life, it tends to help us live the life that we deserve to live. So if it's not making you better, if it's just bringing drama, toxic, stress, pain, remove it from your life. Because the more you keep things in your life that are destroying your life, the more you prevent your life from being healed. You can't heal by holding on to the pain. You can't heal by choosing to stay in the pain. It's like you touching the hot stove and expecting it not to burn when it already burned you 5,000 times. The stove is hot. Stop trying to change the stove into be something that it's not. Stop trying to change that situation, that person to be something that they're not. That's who they are. That's who they choose to be, no matter what you see them for. I'm a firm believer in believing people can be better. Heck, I'm Mr. Rehab time. That's my life. But I'm also not ignorant enough to know that I think I can change somebody to be better. I can influence it, but somebody who chooses to be something, that's what they are, and I'm not going to change the association of it. I'm not going to change the book cover when I know what's in the book. You feel me? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to change what somebody means to my life just because I think that, without them, I'm going to suffer all these things. No, I'm going to keep it what it is, the facts, the reality of it, what it truly is, what it really is. And I'm passionate when I talk about that because some of us, we sit here trying to make excuses for people, grown people, that are choosing to treat us a certain type of way. And you're choosing to stay in it. You cannot heal by staying in the pain. Do you hear me? It's physically impossible. And I know this might seem rude, but I tell people, stop contacting me, hitting me up, hoping for some miracle. Are you still staying there? Okay, cool. Well, guess what? As long as you're staying there, I can tell you whatever. You can watch as many videos as you want to watch. As long as you're staying in it, then you're going to feel it. Just facts. That's why I said the first step to moving on is remove yourself from the pain. And then you got to go on this journey of healing. And the journey of healing is not, you have to understand, healing is an overtime process, not an overnight process. So when you say, okay, this is a journey, I'm going to be healing for this for the rest of my life. And when I say that, don't be scared. Obviously, you become strong. I'm still healing from certain things in my life. I don't feel it as much because I'm not as close to it because I removed myself years ago. But there's times, again, where I still think about certain things. And the ultimate thing as I wrap this up when it comes to moving on, the ultimate thing is forgiveness, guys. And we'll talk about it more in depth. I believe we have. I don't know. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't, but we will talk about it more in depth. Ask me this question on the live Q&A that I hope a lot of you show up for. But forgiveness is the key. You cannot move on effectively, efficiently without forgiveness. Because without forgiveness, you can move on from the person, but you'll never move on from the pain. Without forgiveness, you'll move on from the person, but you'll never move on from the pain. What does that mean? How many of you know, and maybe you can experience this with your own life, how many of you know somebody that is still hurt from somebody who hurt them years ago? And when I mean by hurt, I don't mean that they're, oh, I miss you and crying. I don't mean by that. But I mean hurt. Let me better phrase this. How many people, do you know somebody, or even if it's yourself, that is still bitter from a situation that happened years ago, that they supposedly healed from? If you're making other people pay for mistakes they didn't make, then guess what? You haven't moved on from that person, that situation. If that person, the situation changed you, right? And oftentimes what happens is we become the things that we hate. We become the things that gave us pain. We take on that identity that we hated so much in that situation. And then we give that to other people. How many people that you know is bitter and cold that they wasn't that years ago? That relationship changed them. That situation changed them. That time changed them. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with you because I got changed by situations. But I knew I had to give forgiveness to it. I had to free myself from it. And once I gave forgiveness, it didn't excuse the behavior. It didn't make excuses for anything. But forgiveness is saying, as this fly is flying around my face, we're going to keep it rolling. Come on, fly. Move away. All right, he's trying to get on. You need to move on from me. As I understood that I could not live freely without forgiving, I understood this truth, that if I didn't forgive, I would allow the thing in my past to control my whole life. And I refuse to give power to the thing that destroyed my life for the rest of my life. I refuse, I think the worst way to live life is being controlled by something that is no longer a part of your life. It's like some residual pain effect that just goes with you. And maybe that person has moved on, they're happy, maybe that job has moved on, they don't even think about you no more, and they just operating life and you're still being controlled by it. You got to give forgiveness. And 3 little things with forgiveness, if you don't know, real quick as we wrap this up. 1, just know that you've been forgiven, because it's hard to give forgiveness in certain situations. Know you've been forgiven at some point in your life, so you can't expect a forgiveness that you're not willing to give. For me, with my faith, I know God forgives me daily. Second thing, as a fly comes back, I must smell good. Second thing, try to have empathy, okay? Again, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but try to have empathy. Maybe they didn't know how to treat people because how they were treated. Or maybe they're on the other end of that residual pain. Maybe they got pain from something. They never healed. They never moved on from it enough time. And guess what? Now they're giving out to other people. And then the third thing is just realize that you didn't waste your time in your life. Just realize that you can become better from this. Realize that forgiveness is a strength. It takes a strong person to be able to forgive. It's not a weakness. And when I started understanding those 3 things, it really helped me be able to forgive. When I started thinking about my future and man, I'm going to allow this person to control my whole future, or football to control the rest of my life and not give me a job anymore, or not go for my dreams, or be some depressed human being around my kids and they don't benefit from an actual functional father, an actual father that's present. When I started to think about that, I was like, forget that. I have to let that go. I have to let it go. And that's what I did. So as we wrap this up, I hope you got something from it. I know a lot of you are going to have to re-listen, because as I'm talking, I'm like, man, I just gave a lot of information. I went a lot of information, and probably the most information that I've given when it comes to this topic. I want you to really just focus on that process. Focus on the 3 A's of awareness, acceptance, and association, and focus on the timeline of healing. Just know it's a journey. Just know, okay, I have to remove myself from this. I have to. And remind yourself of that quote, that when the pain of staying becomes more than the uncertainty of leaving, you will start to move on.